Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Podcana. I'm joined by Grandmaster Moyen once again to talk about a Ruby Amethyst control deck. Moyen, first, I want to just welcome you to the channel once again. Happy to have you on. I've mentioned it many times, but I think you're one of the greatest card players I know. It's always a pleasure to have you on and run us through your play lines and talk about the decks. So welcome, Moyen.
Happy to be back.
Yeah. So this list is a Ruby Amethyst control deck, but it has a bit of a different take. It has an evasive package in it, so it's running 10 evasive characters in the form of Pongo, Goofy, and 2 Jetsam. The idea of this deck is that it goes under in the mirror, right? So in the traditional Ruby Amethyst control mirror, you will be playing more aggressively to board, threatening more lore, and will be forcing your opponent to remove your board, right? To be playing Dragonfires, to be playing Be Prepareds, Maleficents, etc. And the idea behind Pongo, Goofy, and Jetsam is that in most of those trades, your opponent will be trading down on value, down or neutral. So a Dragonfire on a Goofy, technically neutral, it does lose tempo. A Dragonfire on a Pongo, -1 value, effect if you want to look at it that way, etc., etc. So really taxing your opponent out of their removal. And because of that, we run 60 cards as well, because we do not plan to go to the sort of infinite loop fatigue area that the mirror tends to go to, where I think that most Ruby Amethyst control lists, if they have the right packages, will not need to go there. And this broom befuddle loop is sort of a bit self-indulgent, right? It's not actually necessary to winning the matchup. Just some macro numbers here. We do have 20 uninkables as well as 40 inkables. We are running 6 items. So we have the 1 pocket watch. That was one of the changes. The idea behind the 20 uninkables, so it did cut 1 Rafiki, is just it's a little bit better on the math to be 7 ink by turn 7. And that's a very critical ink for us because we do sort of power into our Ursulas at that time and Aladdins, etc. Moyen, I want to let you chime in on anything that comes to mind in regards to this list before I dive a little bit deeper.
So basically this deck twist is along the lines of why we thought Pongo was so good. As it's a very efficient threat that is very hard to deal with. And it's not that hard to deal with, but if they have to deal with it, it's never really an efficient trade for them. So we can do so basically Jetsam and Goofy aren't as great as Pongo, but they help us go for this game plan. And it helps so much in the mirror because with just for Pongo, they could sometimes still run you out of stuff and go to the infinite loop, which we weren't playing. And now this is even harder for them to do. And the upside for other matchups is just that we do not have to tax ourselves. We don't have to tax our deck because we don't have to play Befuddles and Brooms just to go infinite in the mirror. So our deck is also a little bit better in the non-mirror matchups.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we look at Ruby Amethyst matchup spread, I think that it's probably most people would agree that aggro is one of your worst matchups, especially go wide aggro. And the good thing about Ruby Amethyst Evasives is that it inherently plays the board. Although you're playing understated characters in the form of Pongo and Goofy, you are still playing characters to board, so you can still contest there. A lot of these other Ruby Amethyst control decks that have the befuddles, have the brooms, relying to turn 7 for a Be Prepared to clear an aggressive deck, you often will lose before then. So you need to be playing things that actually contest in combat, right? So that's why we have the 4 Gaston, we have the 3 Sergeant Tibbs. Often these cards are inked. These are very inkable cards, right? But the Gaston is there to clear things like Kuzco, and it just helps you contest board, because that's probably the most common way you'll lose as Ruby Amethyst. Ruby Amethyst does feel very favored into most decks in the metagame, and especially with this list, it feels very favored into the mirror as well. So you need to be prepared for aggro. It's also the reason we're at 6 items, is to sort of give us a better chance in that aggro matchup. Just the 1 Rabbit's Pocket Watch, we talked about maybe playing 2, but you just want to have better draws into some of those worst matchups. Some card changes I want to talk about, some considerations. Maybe playing a couple Zeus. So right now we're playing 3 Rafiki. The reason why Zeus is potentially good is because Zeus, when playing against Amber, doesn't give your opponent the opportunity to get Rapunzel value. So if you play Rafiki and you trade into something and they have something on board that has greater than 3 defense, they can attack it, then heal with Rapunzel and draw. Often the key to winning the Amber matchup is preventing them from drawing on Rapunzel. So Rafiki can be a bad card there, and Zeus helps that out. And then also against Cusco. Cusco's probably the most powerful card against Ruby Amethyst, or at least it's up there. And Zeus is a clean answer to Cusco. It also threatens 2 lore when questing, so definitely a card to consider. Outside of that, we are playing the 4 Ursula package, the 3 Elsas. This could easily be 4 Elsa, 3 Ursula. It could be 4 Ursula, 4 Elsa. Those are small tweaks that you can make depending on your preference. Outside of that, everything is pretty standard, right? Just playing the good cards in Ruby Amethyst. And the idea is, in the mirror, you need to think about it in the sense that you want to be the beatdown deck. The deck that is questing, the aggressive deck, is often quite favored in the mirror, and having things like Pongo and Goofy allow you to do that, even if that means you get up to the 15 lore, 17 lore. If you get up to those lore breakpoints, and then they clear with Be Prepared, the board stabilizes, and you start going into a long game, that's still a very good position for you, because at that point, pretty much every card you drop is threatening lethal and is asking them for board removal in the form of Maleficent, Be Prepared, etc. So getting out in front of your opponent early in the Ruby Amethyst mirror, super, super important. Awesome. Well, Moyen, anything else to say about the list before we hop into the games?
No. I think it's basically just the same good old list, but now we're threatening even harder with evasive threats.
Okay, so yeah, looking at the mulligan here, I think that with Ruby Amethyst, especially running 20 on Inkables, you often will be mulliganing for Inkables. It's very important that you can hit that curve. My question to you, Moyen, is are you thinking about throwing away a Shield of Virtue, or are you just happy to keep an Inkable card no matter what it is?
I'm happy to keep Ink. The only card I'm really looking for is the Draw 2 song alongside a 3-drop, maybe Rafiki, but I'm very happy just having as many Inkables as possible with this hand.
Yep. And we do have the 2 Gastons as well, which is nice in case our opponent is on something like a Emerald deck. Gives us insurance.
Yeah, but even then we might just end up only playing 1. So if we have more than 2 ink, we would very likely just prefer to play Maleficent or other stuff.
Yeah, so an ink on a Mickey Mouse tells us we're potentially playing a mirror, or there is a lot of Sapphire Amethyst decks running around. I'm not sure that they would run the Mickey package, but something to consider as now we look at what cards we should be inking. Yeah, the Archimedes is interesting. Will you commit your Gaston to the board to trade the Archimedes, or Maleficent?
So basically, if we think that this is the mirror, I'm confused that they play this, maybe? Don't think I need to play a Gaston for that.
I think trading with the 3-drop Maleficent is totally fine. That being said, I do think if you're on the play in the mirror, dropping a 1-drop can add a bit of pressure because you can get about 3 lore ahead of your opponent. I mean, this looks like, looks like we're in the mirror so far, but yeah, Yzma's also
this is
weird.
It is a little annoying that they get ahead in lore, but I think we'll still have the advantage being up an entire card for ink later. Definitely could have dropped the shield, but I wasn't sure this was really the matchup we're in. Could have dropped the shield.
100%, yeah. I find myself in that situation a lot where, on turn 4, turn 5, I'm like, oh, I could have dropped this one cost or 2 cost because I ended up drawing Inkables. But the thing about this deck is you don't really know what's going to come off the top, and you could draw a sequence of uninkables in that case.
So in this matchup already, the shield is definitely very inkable against purple-blue.
Yep, so purple-blue is also a control deck. I know that a lot of players play purple-blue to prey on Ruby Amethyst. It's seen as a favorable matchup. That being said, I do think there are some very critical cards that purple-blue wants to see in the early game, both being Mickey Mouse, the one that accelerates you in ink, as well as the mirror, because purple-blue really needs access to its draw engine in order to compete with Ruby Amethyst.
So if we wanted the shield down, we could get an ink and then trade. But I think I would prefer to have this as an inkable with this hand. Sounds very awkward. I think I'm just using a Maleficent because we don't really need both of them.
Yeah, the Maleficent ink makes sense. One thing about Ruby Amethyst that I really enjoy about the deck is if you go card for card in terms of like card draw with your opponent and the board is relative to parity, I don't think that there is any other color combination that has higher quality cards than Ruby Amethyst. So if no matter what deck you play against, it seems like if you do extend to the late game, and like I said, you do maintain that parity, your top decks in general will be better, and your sort of one-for-one trades in terms of card value seem to be higher because you have access to Elsa, Maleficent, etc.
It's very hard to keep up with the late game of this deck, but the best way to do it is probably some blue combination. Maybe Amber and blue, keeping up with card draw, but also pressuring with Hades, Eye of the Fates. Okay, so we have some card draw at least.
Yeah, I think a good draw for us here would probably be something like a Maui. There we go. Because we do need to contest this board before turn 7. And
Yeah,
we don't
so
even have turn 7 be prepared.
We're already very far, not very far behind in terms of like being able to win this game, but the early game went very, very badly, as we couldn't contest with a Rafiki or anything. Couldn't play a Maui on turn 5, couldn't contest with a Pongo on 4. So now they are already going up to 9 ink. After the Maui, they still have at least 3 on the board. This ink question is interesting.
Yeah, the biggest question I would ask myself is the Aladdin too slow, or is it exactly what they need? I would rather probably play 2 Maui instead of Maui than Dragonfire, but in the context of inkables, like maybe we have to ink in a Maui. So, but
I think I'm inking a Maleficent. Maleficent is far too slow with how this game's going. So I want to have at least the option of dropping Aladdin into Elsa maybe.
Yep. I think if we stabilize the board over the next 2 turns, so prior to turn 9, we're in a great spot because our opponent.
Yeah, also the Queen is not a threat. If you go Dragonfire here, you're completely throwing the game because the immediate threat is not losing to them questing every turn. It's not that they could draw an extra card here and outvalue us, because that's not happening. We just need to slow the game down. And Maui's just like taking lore off the board immediately and then still demanding an answer or just clearing something next turn is fine. That being said, I think I was about to say I don't mind Mauing the Queen here, but yeah, I still think that, because so basically Aladdin is better at stopping the questing threat. You could think, except on worst case scenario where it almost loses us the game. It probably does lose us the game. So basically if we were to go Aladdin here and then we get Hades, that's game losing in comparison to going Maui and then into the Hades turn where we still take something off the board.
I think that is absolutely correct. Yeah. Aladdin opens us up to lose this game, where Maui's a clear way to stabilize the board and get to 7 ink, where we're then playing Ursula and Elsa after that.
So let's get rid of the Pongo. To be fair to them, the Archimedes, how many lore has it already pushed?
A lot, right? So that's the thing about the Eternal Archimedes, is it can be pretty crazy. It can be rough. Okay, Dr. Fessy. It can be rough into turn 3 Rafiki and things like that, and then turn 4 Rafiki sings Friends of the Other Side, just gets tons of value. But I think that often, if you're on the play, the 1-drop can be pretty aggressive if you know you're in the control mirror. Outside of that, I would almost never play a 1-drop.
At this stage, Maleficent might actually be better than Aladdin now that we didn't want to drop it earlier. So I do want to play Elsa this turn.
Yeah, I think it is, to be honest. Specifically because our opponent could also be holding back. Like they could still have the Hades in hand. I just don't want to get into the situation where Aladdin is our only card on board and gets removed. So we don't have to be prepared in hand. We don't really have insurance against a play like that.
Now's the situation where the pocket watch on the board would be insane. Which we're playing 1 off right now.
True. And the pocket watch We could have played it on the earlier turns as well, which is pretty unique because we didn't have any turn 3s or anything like that.
Oh yeah, because we didn't have anything to do. Oh, that's a very good draw. I think I'm fine just resetting the board. Although this board isn't that threatening, you could say. We could remove 2 already, but we would still be taking like chip damage every turn. Every turn they would still be questing for some. So now we can just sing the Be Prepared and put on the Ursula.
Yep, I totally agree with that.
I don't mind inking this.
Yep. I don't think Pongo is going to be conducive to us winning this game now that we have stabilized at 9 ink as the control deck in this matchup. Or, our opponent has been the aggressor, is down on cards. We're at parity on cards right now, but our cards are more than likely much more valuable than theirs.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are not very likely to need the ink immediately, but there's some turns where maybe we would go Magic Mirror, draw in the future, and then the extra ink could help already. Yeah, so basically now we're at the stage where they didn't push far enough and our cards just outclassed their cards, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even mind using the Maleficent here. We just want to not give them time. Because we can push ahead now and close the game off as early as possible. And so you could even make an argument for Elsa because it's one more lore, but Elsa's also just stopping any threat that they could develop in the future. Even better than Maleficent could ever do. I think that's not necessarily the correct target.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing about Lorcana is that there's these pivot points in the game where the roles of the deck switch, right? And last turn seems to be the inflection point where we went from being the control deck to now the aggressive deck. Even though our opponent's on 11 lore, them simply dropping a threat every turn and trying to quest to that is, it's not going to be too great against Ruby Amethyst at 9 ink, right? We are now the threatening.
This turn I actually don't think we inked the Jetson. Think there is maybe the world where we just top deck low value cards and having an extra body is more impactful than the ink, because it's very hard to imagine a sequence of cards where, or likely event of draws that we would have where we would actually need to ink immediately this turn.
Yeah, the only one that I see would, but I don't think it wouldn't even be relevant because we could still ink off of it, would be draw Magic Mirror, and you would want Magic Mirror plus Dragonfire for some reason.
That's basic.
Yeah.
Yep. And also, I don't think it's worth inking just to play the Rafiki a turn earlier. We're not that close. Maybe that's not true, but there's some ways they can stop us inking. Questing for this much.
Okay.
So they go wide again. They're completely out of cards.
That's a good draw.
That works. It was by no means necessary, but that definitely works.
Yep. Very hard for a Amethyst Sapphire opponent to come back into this game with no draw engine here and us threatening to.
So I used my last removal for Bell, but even if they have Bell questing for how much is it?
5.
5. It's still not enough. I would go to 13, put down 5. We could just remove the 2/2s.
I can't imagine a world where it was for them to ink whatever card that was.
The nicest thing about not playing against red is that you never have to hold back, you just go all in. I guess against gray sometimes you have to hold back as well, but against non-gray, non-red, there's just no sweepers in the game. Play all your cards.
Alright. So, on the play here, again, probably just getting rid of the uninkable. That's the thing about Ruby Amethyst, pretty easy to, at least if you have no idea what your opponent is on, it's easier to mulligan. I think a lot of the mulligan decisions come in when you are facing the mirror and you're against opposing Ruby Amethyst or something like that. But yeah.
I think I'm like totally fine with this hand. it's ink this. Then we only play the tips if, let's say, there would be a Lilo or something coming down here. And that is probably ink as well. Then we have Maleficent on 3, Pongo on 4, some more ink, or maybe a Jetsam to contest their Inkables, their evasives.
Oh. All right, looks like we're into another Amethyst matchup. Oh, and an Olaf off the back. You know, one mistake I see a lot of new players make in Lorcana is playing out their hand on curve and not considering that some of these cards should just be lands, right? Even if you have two 1-drops, playing out the 1-drop can be a big mistake, right? Because that represents a resource over the long term.
So what card did they ink?
They inked a Amethyst card. I'm trying to remember. It was I think it was Maleficent. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember.
Because I think Olaf doesn't really make sense in control. I think it's rather like an aggressive card with the high HP line.
Mm-hmm.
So against that, I am considering putting down the tips. But even then, yeah. I think also our hand is a lot of ink, and we have the fence on the other side for more ink. I don't think I mind playing it, but I would have to know. So it's Maleficent that they inked?
I thought so. I could be wrong.
Because if it's Maleficent, I don't think we need to play it.
I know that whatever card they inked first made me think it was maybe a controller. I do think it was Maleficent though. All right, so I mean, this is definitely more aggressive oriented with Emerald being the other color. We need to definitely be contesting board, thinking about how we're going to play into the Cusco. Will likely come down turn 5. That's a good draw with the Gaston. That can be really good for us.
So it's time to draw some cards. And then contest the board a little bit. Because they are the beatdown deck in this matchup, I actually don't mind playing Jetsam here. With 2-3 HP bodies on the board.
Interesting. Was there any consideration to ink the Maleficent and keep the Gaston back for double Cusco?
What are you saying?
I was wondering if there was any consideration to ink the Maleficent, the 9-drop, and keep the double Gaston as an answer to Cusco. I guess if they go turn 5 Cusco, turn 6 Cusco, you have an answer and be prepared. So you probably don't need double Gaston.
Also, if they go Cusco, I don't need to have it on the board already. I can still play it afterwards.
Okay, so I think the Jetsam's it's gonna work out it's working out nicely for us, at least to contest.
Yeah, it gets a trade and it can't be traded back. Still threatening to trade into something next turn. I think we just get down Gaston and Magic Mirror now.
Yep, Gaston, very good card to be developing on turn 4 right before a potential Cusco turn as well. And it very much feels like against Emerald decks, you need to stabilize before turn 7. Turn 7 you have access to be prepared. But you need to prevent them from getting too much lore, because if they do get upwards to like 15 lore or something like that, Cuscos can just close out the game, because pretty much every Cusco represents 3 lore or a be prepared at the very least. Yep. And there's the Cusco.
Also, if they go to like 15, maybe they connect 3 with a Cusco, then they're at 18, and then suddenly you have to clear every single card they play. This deck's very good at that, but sometimes something will stick for 1 turn and be able to quest, and then very sad. Okay, have to use the mirror. And Inge Maleficent or Pongo? Probably a Pongo. Yeah, probably a Pongo, because at least Maleficent is a way to clear something late game after we've stabilized. And then this is banish the challenging character, so we've set that up, clearing with the 2/2. I'm pretty sure I want to keep the Gaston because it's the only thing that trades into Cusco. We just sacrifice the other two.
100%. And Cusco is by far their best card against us.
Yep. The only thing is, this is worse against is maybe Tinkerbell, but they already have Cusco on the board. They don't have Tinkerbell on the board.
Yeah, that is one thing we didn't talk about in the deck tech, but evasive characters in aggro decks have become more popular. I know red green evasive was getting popular for a bit, and just green decks in general can run more evasive characters. See the Tinkerbell played more. This deck is very, very good against that, especially when people were trying to counter control by playing. Okay, good thing we're going into. Oh, he bounced his own Cusco. Very interesting. I really thought he was going to bounce Gaston.
Because they see it as like this +3. That's kind of smart. Could have just be prepared it if they bounced our card. But now I want to keep the be prepared for when they do replay the Cusco. So that basically leaves Ursula as the only option this turn.
Interesting. I didn't see that coming, but I think it's probably correct.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Because they don't see it as, oh, I need to develop a board. They just see it as, I'm on 10, and bouncing this Cusco is another +3. And if I keep it on the board, it can die to Maui or maybe the Zeus we talked about. This is so annoying that there's no Dragonfire, because that's usually what we would want to do here. But because we don't have one, kind of have to be prepared this if we didn't have the Elsa. Yeah, Elsa can at least buy us another turn where we quest and they don't, and if they develop more, can clear that. Yeah. Or just go into Maleficence as well.
Yeah, Maleficence, turn 9.
So it can Ursula, Elsa, Maleficence, they can all seem greedy, but it's so good to have options. They are not all always good, but there's situations for each of them.
Now, are we planning to trade our Gaston into the Genie here because we plan on be preparing the Cusco?
You mean into Hans?
Yeah, into Hans.
So what's the upside of leaving it up? I don't really see it. As the upside is we can keep it for when we want to trade a Cusco, but is that upside real? How do we kill the Hans then? We would have to trade Elsa. I think we just trade.
I think if we don't trade the Hans, we're more likely to kill our own Gaston with be prepared anyway.
There's also, so this is a, I don't think this decision is very impactful, because most of the time if we don't trade, we could still trade next turn. But yeah. Okay. Finally, they're giving us the Cusco.
Yeah.
Also with 2 evasives, which would have been a little bit of an issue anyways. So we can even draw this turn with the Magic Mirror. Play Pongo, play Be Prepared. Let's draw first.
We could. I was just thinking Quest Ursula, play Shield, untap, seeing Be Prepared. I was wondering if that was the line.
Or just, no, I don't really like that, because
inking it for 9 anyway. Yeah, makes sense.
No, but also what that would accomplish is basically pushing 3 quests, putting us from 6 to 9 instead of using the Magic Mirror. I don't think we're at that stage where this +3 is more impactful than getting to draw an extra card, getting an extra ink. Because we would have to sacrifice either sacrificing the Pongo or drawing a card, and I think both of those are better than just +3 lore.
Yeah, you're right. And now these muffins are looking nice. We have Be Prepared backup in case we need it. I think we're in a great spot for this game.
So now's the stage we talked about where we stabilized, and Maleficent didn't look great earlier, but at least it makes it so we don't take the chip damage that we talked about game 1.
Yep, and I think that's a fair concession as well. Okay, well, that concludes our games, Moyen. I appreciate you coming on. I genuinely do believe that this list, the Evasive Ruby Amethyst control list, is very well positioned in the meta, especially if you see a lot of Ruby Amethyst on ladder. You're playing a lot of mirrors, maybe there's a lot of Ruby Amethyst in your local metagame. This list is, you didn't get to see it today, but it is very favored in the mirror from our experience, which is a pretty decent sample size at this time. I'd say over a couple weeks. The list should be better in theory against aggro because you are playing to board. You do have access to those 1-drops like we saw last game. In Sergeant Tibbs, you have 4 Gastons, which is not a lot of lists run. And your Evasive characters, although understated, they do still contest the board. So overall, the list is quite good in terms of what it is not favored into. Not exactly sure yet. It's probably just very aggressive decks that would beat you anyway. So I feel like from the traditional control list, assuming you're able to beat Ruby Amethyst in the mirror, which has been our experience, and not go to the infinite loop, you should have a better matchup spread all around compared to the traditional list. That has been my experience so far. Yep. All right, I want to thank you once again, Moyen, for coming on. Always a pleasure to play with you. And yeah, look forward to seeing you in the future.
Looking forward to our next deck tech.